what this verse is doing is something quite important.
Cushion.
It is making us think about what Vidya and Avidya. That's a framework within which it operates. What is Vidya and what is Avidya? So Avidya means ignorance and Vidya means knowledge. So we started with the most basic definition of ignorance and knowledge, and that, as Rashna said, was what? The basic definition is what? The people who don't have academic education, and what is, with reference to that, what is Vidya?
Uneducated.
The education. Education is a Vidya. Then do we stop at that definition? No. So we moved further into the definition, and we said, even if you are highly educated, you can be what? Highly self-centered person. Please don't think that the self-centeredness means we all confuse by we say that education will solve all the problems, but the modern education is geared towards what? Just knowing things about the world and not thinking enough about what my participation in this world. So that means that the quality. So that means that it's not only about what Vidya and Avidya. Your definition has to evolve a little bit more, and you have to say what becoming from self-centered to that becomes ignorance, and that has got nothing to do with what you're formally educated or you're formally not educated. So that means you have that also becomes, so that means you can have a world where highly intelligent people also operate from ignorance. Ignorance about what? The definition of well-being. If I define my well-being narrowly, then the other's well-being is excluded, and that is a position of ignorance. So that means those people being highly educated, they are still operating from ignorance. Then we increased what? The definition even more. What did we do? We said you can have all the good intentions and you can also what? Be highly educated. But in implementing, if you disregard what? Human relationships, that is also ignorance. You see how we are moving for layers and layers and layers of ignorance? So when we are talking about moving from the position of ignorance to knowledge, we have to be aligned at all these different levels. So that means you can be a greatest strategist, you can be highly educated, you can mean well, and at the same time in your interpersonal relationships you are what? Highly controlling. So that means that is also ignorance. So that means your definition and the different layers of ignorance is something which is very important. Then we move to another definition of what? Ignorance. And that also, as Rashna said, is what? Understanding the design within which we are working. Another level of ignorance. Ishvara. So that means you can be well educated, you can define your goals with what? Keeping other people in mind. You can also what? Take care of your own personal interactions and have right values. But if you miss what? The overall design within which you work, still you are operating from ignorance. So that means if you haven't brought Ishvara, even if you have taken care of the other three, you are still within ignorance. Because you haven't totally understood the world in which you are operating. You see how important it is that there are layers and layers and layers of ignorance we all have. So that means, and this is why, in fact I do want to, when you bring in Ishvara, there are some very, very important shifts that take place. So just summarizing the discussion that we had is very interesting. While we were kind of trying to show our sphere of influence and working intelligently within that sphere of influence, and then how the intelligence organizes the world differently. It was interesting because Xavier made this comment that in that definition of our sphere of influence, we go wrong. So that means we always do much less than what we can do. And it is probably true. But what is also very important to recognize in that is that, you know, the world does not move linearly. There are quantum shifts. Quantum shifts. But the quantum shifts are a result of what? A lot of linear moving. Example. Albert Einstein was probably one of the amazing physicists who changed the whole paradigm within which this physics, the world of physics works. So, you know, the things such as time and space being relative and not absolute. Then what? E is equal to mc squared. The mass and energy are just, you know, transforming one to the other. There is no real death in the universe. These are revolutionary ideas. They are not small little things. Yeah? But to get there, how many years of physics he had to study. So that means there was a quantum shift in a level which was so radical. But to get to that radical, what needed was what? Many steps, which then prepared for what? That quantum shift. If you try to eliminate and you just want quantum shifts without preparing the foundation, it is not going to happen. So therefore, if you begin to understand, so you don't need to settle for something linear, it's lovely. You have to aim for what? Quantum shifts. But to get to quantum shifts, you have to act linearly. This is so important. Because unless you do that, the universe is not ready for that shift. So therefore, when you understand the design, so small acts as exactly the Surya's example. The photosynthesis was act of one small bacteria and one little contribution. The cumulative result of that was huge. What is the cumulative result? Ozone layer being formed, which enabled the life. So that means that at one point it was not linear. Until that ozone layer was formed, that each act seemed like what?
Insignificant. Bacteria, small bacteria.
But when that right point occurred, what happened? There was a huge shift. So that means, are we ensuring that? Are we saying, and now that, okay, now I want quantum shift? Are we doing it? There is a bigger intelligence which is taking the effects of small actions, and at one point it produces that shift. But if we only think about quantum shifts and we forget about all these small design, where you need to do something, what will happen? Nothing. So therefore, the presence of intelligence makes a whole big shift in how we do things. The presence of Ishvara. You don't pay attention to, you don't disregard the small acts, but you don't only aim for small acts. You aim for what? Bigger shifts. But bigger shifts cannot happen without small acts. That that means you have both in mind. You are not caught either in only small or only in big. You see the connection, and the connecting force is Ishvara. So that means bringing in Ishvara will bring whole new dimension to your life. So, and that is not only good for the world, it also is good for us. Because otherwise, any engagement that we have with the world will be born out of dissatisfaction. So, I will just tell you that Claire told me something quite interesting during the break. So, I'm going to say it with your permission. So, what she told me is that she did some training in her company, and in that training, they were all made to stand in the salt water. So the whole thing is that a lot of our mental energy just goes in what holding ourselves and what not falling. A lot of our 40% of your mental brain is working for what? Just survival. So by putting a salt water, what they do is it becomes very easy for you to float. So that means there is not much effort for you to stand. Seems like so what? It's an interesting exercise because what she's saying is she as part of her management, she works for a very big French company. So what are you accomplishing by that? It seems like a stupid thing to do, just go and stand on this salt. But actually, they say this 40% of energy that you use to just stay stable on the ground is released. It freed up for what? You can use it for anything. You can use it for creativity. You can use it for thinking about things differently. Because all that is a potential which was utilized somewhere else, which is now free. So it becomes a resource. Same thing, I was thinking about it, same thing with reference to our understanding of the world and dissatisfaction. One is dissatisfied looking at things. Imagine if 30% of your energy is occupied with dissatisfaction. You want to make a contribution, but your energies are limited and they are consumed by what? Dissatisfaction. By understanding of Ishvara, if you can free up this 30% of your own energy of dissatisfaction and use it for something else, your own effectiveness is going to be what? Far more. Your own interventions are going to be what? Far more effective. You can use, in fact, I was thinking this is a very nice example to use. So that means this dissatisfied way of looking at the world, it is not only detrimental to, it is detrimental to me, and it is making me more ineffective in doing the changes that I want to do. You have to see that. Actually, I want to engage in doing something good, but as long as I am burdened by that 30% dissatisfaction, it's my engagement which makes it what it is less than optimum. We need to free ourselves from some very implicit assumptions which are so critical for us to live life meaningfully. The world is bad, the world is unfair, people are like that, corporations are like that, governments are like that, environment is like that. So that means your whole thinking capacity is only preoccupied with what? Thinking about what is going wrong. the more we dwell and dwell and dwell, we occupy more and more and more space on what is not right. And naturally, less space is available to what? Do something which I believe in and begin to do it. And that is what we say our connection with Ishvara. It will give our life a given perspective. And it will enable us, because you need Ishvara's help also for quantum shifts. You can't decide. Did Einstein know that when he was going to discover time and space is relative? Did he know? He was not even actually looking for it. When he discovered that, he himself was so shocked. He says that the ground on which I am standing is beginning to shake. Because for so many years we believed that what time and space is absolute, and he discovered something which was a complete quantum shift. But he didn't, it was not in his hand to say, now at this moment I want to discover that. It happened. It happened because of what? His years of dedication towards science. Years of dedication. So, Mary Jane, so I'm so happy you're all thinking. I'm so happy that these discussions are triggering kind of thought processes in you all. She had told me something which was so beautiful. You want to tell, please, you can say it. Yeah, we have to hear it. Because it's her idea. So say it's interesting what she said.
No, when it all started when you said, you don't really care about how many people come to your class. It's and there's this big belief now. I don't know if you've heard of Tony Robbins, and there's an amazing attraction to him. And I was telling her, there's his talks, there's just so many followers, and I was wondering, what is this attraction? And the attraction is immediate results, you see, and without process, without what we've been talking about. You see, so this immediate result it causes a lot of frustration because it doesn't happen. You see, I've known many who have been, and they keep going because no, then the other one will tell me. You see, and I was wondering why. What is what is it that attracts so many people of all ages and all nationalities? And I discussed with her and I said, is this it? And it's a bit of the part that the immediatism of the young, of wanting results immediately and not having time, not wanting to spend time. And it can't work this way, it needs to be layered, like we were talking about.
Dedication.
So that means, see, the more urgency there is, more work is needed now. But if your mind works as to more urgency, things have to change at big level, actually we are not doing enough effort to make those changes. We are not creating foundations. So that means creating foundations are very important, and once those foundations are taken care of, then what a lot of things can happen. A lot of shifts can happen. So that means bringing in Ishvara, the overall intelligence design, and how it operates and moving along with it is also what taking care of ignorance. It's our own ignorance. It seems like a very enlightened view, but in that enlightened view, there is ignorance of how the world works. See, all these paradoxes, all these nuances you have to capture. What is ignorance and what is knowledge? Vedanta makes you a very sophisticated thinker. Now, what is the final ignorance? Tell me.
Not knowing about Ishvara.
Not knowing is
Awareness.
awareness. Exactly. So that means the final ignorance from where we were, which is very good, Rashna.
Thank you.
So now is what? That not knowing my true nature. We are stuck in this world. What? Thinking that I am what? This limited individual. And thinking I'm this limited individual and what? The world is other than me. That itself is a wrong paradigm. It's a wrong paradigm. So therefore, what happens is, you need to shift based on what reality. It is not shifting based on what just some your wishful thinking, I'm limitless and all. We are not talking about this flaky kind of thing. Based on the examination, which is a thorough examination, we saw how many hours we spent on what re-looking at the nature of I, re-looking at the nature of Ishvara, seeing where the equation is, all that. So that means the final ignorance is what that you need to address, and that is what? Knowing your true nature. From this little individual to what?
Truth.
Atma, which is the truth of the world. You have to remove. In fact, the world is designed in a way, until you undo that ignorance, none of the other things will be fixed completely.
That is the operating conditional awareness.
Absolutely. You are operating from the starting point of this whole, your basis of operation is wrong. That I am limited and I have to do something in this world. Yeah, to find my fulfillment or find my whatever. So that itself is wrong. So the final ignorance is what? That what is my true nature? So that means, it means many different things. It means that if I want to finally remove this ignorance of my true nature, which are all the other ignorances which I have to deal with on the way? Tell me.
All the ones.
All the previous ones. Because all the previous ones are building block for me to get to what?
True vision.
The final.
Fine.
So that means in order to have an alignment at a bigger level, I still need so many alignments at so many levels before I get to the top. If I don't understand and if I don't start making those changes at all these different levels, it will only bring frustration to me. Because then I said, yeah, this limitless, when will I get there?
So you are operating a wheel of ignorance basically.
Exactly. So that means you have overlooked the intricacies of what alignments and all different alignments at so many different levels before you get there. So the way you begin to, every time you make an alignment at any given level, it makes your foundation what? Stronger. And it makes it stronger. And it makes it stronger. Till the point that you are completely aligned to the truth of what is. Because ultimately, what is what only one Atma. There is no second thing in this universe. That means what we say is what? Atma Satyam Jagat Vidya. Jagat Vidya doesn't mean the world is false. It doesn't mean that it is an illusion. It does not mean that it is unreal. It only means what? It has a complete dependent reality. There is only one independent reality, and that is what? You. And that is already free. Pervading all the forms, you are what? Free from all the forms. So that means Now, if as a result of all these alignments, you understand that final thing, which is what the removal of the final ignorance, what will happen? By the time you get there, everything else is
Strong.
aligned. Then, with that, what will happen? Your engagement in the world will be what?
Very effective.
Very effective, very clear, operating out of clarity, operating out of some cheerfulness, operating out of what?
Successful.
Sense of fulfillment.
Yeah.
You are going to actually free up so much of your mental space to do what you really want to do than when you are operating from ignorance. So even to be able to be more effective in the world, what do you need to do? You need to take care of your ignorance.
Take care of
Your ignorance. This ignorance at so many different levels. So, this is what Vidya and Avidya. So, if you see from the standpoint of the final thing, let's look a little bit differently. If you think from the standpoint of the final reality of what the ignorance about the nature of I, then anybody who's engaging in the world which does not know the true nature is operating from where? Ignorance. Some level of ignorance. Even if the person is highly ethical, the person is still ignorant. Even if the person enjoys a very high position, whether it is that person is on earth or that person is on some other loka, the person is still operating from ignorance. That means, what do you understand about yourself in this world? If you think I'm a small entity, then you're operating from ignorance. Because that entity that you think you are is a position of ignorance. So that means you need to understand the most effective way of engaging in the world is what? Removing what? That biggest ignorance that we have about ourselves, which is what is my true nature. Once, in order to solve it, you need to remove what? All the other ignorances all the way. Once the whole thing is sorted out, what is going to be your engagement with the world? Totally aligned. So, I'm also going to say something which is interesting. So, Xavier is a great thinker, and he is such a sensitive human being, and he has a good intention. So, he is always kind of, searching for more meaningful engagement in the world. And Xavier. So, I'm just going to take liberty because he's a good friend. So,
we saw in introduction.
you saw it. Now, so we were once discussing with Surya. So he says, then Xavier is always sweet. He says, I don't know exactly what, I'm still searching as to what I can do to, he has all these very noble kind of intentions. He has very noble thoughts. Then he's a very sensitive and he believes in what he does. He doesn't do things just for the sake of doing. So he's constantly, it's a struggle. It is a struggle. So then, I was telling Surya. He says, really, Xavier, what he's really seeking is moksha. That is really his search. His real search is what?
Ultimate freedom.
The ultimate freedom. The ultimate freedom comes from what? Knowing yourself, and everything then in the process, what is aligned. So that is true. So that means you have to get everything right. So that is what we operate from Vidya all the way. Otherwise we operate from what? Partial Vidya and some Avidya. Partial knowledge and partial knowledge, ignorance, exactly. And the proportion can keep on increasing, but we still operate from, until the entire thing is sorted out, we still operate from ignorance, even though we are very noble. So that means this is the definition which is talked about. Okay. Now, the next verse, he says, if you operate from either gross avidya or partial avidya, what is the result? And what is the result if you have what totally taken care of avidya at all levels? So the next verse, which is what 12th verse, it is talking about anta tamaha pravishanti ye asambhutam iti upasate tataha bhuya iva taha samo yahu sabutyam rataha. So that means that until you have solved avidya at all these different levels, what happens? You operate in the universe as what? One small little entity. As long as you operate as a small little entity, what will happen? You do actions and you receive results of your actions. The actions are limited, they will produce what?
Limited results.
Results. And you are what? Caught, and in order to experience the limited result of the action, you have to take what? Limited body. So that means this is what we call the cycle of birth and death, samsara. Samsara does not mean something bad, it only means what? You are within what? This cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. And who are you? That little entity who's bound by cause and effect. Doing good actions will give you what? Good results. But will it take you out of this cause and effect? No. You're still bound. And your life is what? Not only in your life you experience the results of your cause and effect, but you also, because you are interconnected to everyone, you also experience what? Results of others' actions. You can't disconnect yourself from others' actions. Nobody can. Then you feel what? Helpless. Because you can only do what you can do, but you are also experiencing what? The doing of somebody else. And that doing of somebody else, if it is not done properly, it affects you. You can't, So whether you look at the environment or any way we look at it, that somebody else, somebody sitting somewhere making a decision of using what not eco-friendly technologies to produce something is affecting what? Your air that you are breathing. And do you even know who that person is? So there are multiple people who are doing it. So therefore, with that kind of a thing, what will happen is what? That your life is affected by everybody else's decisions. And then, because you are not indifferent, you want to go and change every person. Now the person may listen to you and change, but the person also may say what?
It's not my concern.
And it's not my concern, and who are you to them? They can also say that. So therefore, in this way of engaging, the more and more and more subtle you become, sometimes what happens is, you find less and less and less people with you. Because most of the people operate from what? So many different levels of ignorance. Imagine you have come up to the 3rd level. You will find everybody is elevated to that level?
No.
No. There are so many people who are operating from what?
The lower level.
The lower levels. Always going to be like that. Yeah? So that means your capacity to engage in the world is going to be limited by what those people. In fact, we think it is frustrating, but it is good. Why is it good? Because imagine if you were able to fix everything and you found a perfect world, it will keep you from what? Knowing your true nature. But because you can't fix anything 100%, and if you are a thinking person, it will take you to what? To your reality. To higher realities. The very helplessness will make you ask questions. So the world is designed in a way that until you solve this biggest problem, which is what? Discovering your limitlessness, and you will never be able to totally fix anything. And that is because by not fixing, it is impelling you to what? Seek more, and what it is pointing towards a higher level of ignorance and impelling you to remove that. So that means that you cannot fix the world is actually a good thing, because if the world exactly acted according to your wishes, it will keep you from what? Knowing the reality. Wonderful. So, your whole, in Ishvara's design, you will only be satisfied when you know your true nature, which is what? Limitless. And by getting there, you have also done all the other things. It's not like it's hanging in the air with no foundation. So, this is what it says, that if you have not, if you are within Avidya, what happens is, you are, what it says, that it is within Mrityu. Mrityu means life of becoming, birth and death. A form means a form is born, a form has to go. The position of that form in the scheme of things is what? Small. Even if you become a very nice form and you go to a world which has very nice things, it is still limited. So that means that will take you from what it here it says it will take you from death to death. So we generally say about birth to birth, but here it says what? Death to death. Why? Because there is what? Life of limitation. If my true nature is limitless, and if I have taken myself to be limited, my journey cannot be complete. So that means that I have to, when I complete the journey, what is that? Tell me. Freedom from what?
Birth and death.
This birth. The cycle of birth and death.
Of cycle?
Cycle of birth and death. So you don't come back when you understand the fact that I am this, I am not the body. I am not the, bring back the first verses. And I am that awareness which is all pervading, which has no boundaries, pervading everything. It is what? Free from everything. Then there is no need for me to come back and experience the world with what? Connected to only one form. It is like this space. The space is, it seems as though there is this glass space, there is a cup space, there is a room space. But in reality, how many spaces are there?
One space.
There is only one space. And what is the truth of that one space? That if there is only one space, why do we say that there is this is a glass space, this is a cup space? Why do we say that?
Name and form.
Excellent. There is a seeming confinement. There is a seeming confinement. So that means it seems to us, our visual impression is what? the glass is limiting space. What is the reality? The reality is what the glass is existing in space. It is not confining space. That is the truth. This is what we call upadhi. Upadhi, it gives an appearance of this space being confined. And this cup also gives an appearance of what? The space to be confined there. And it gives an illusion of two spaces.
That's the blue and the yellow bottle.
Yes.
Yeah? Absolutely. It gives that illusion. When you look at it, it seems like that. When you look at the reality, you say, actually, this is only creating an appearance. In reality, space is one. And it is free from any confinement. The second thing that you need to understand is, imagine that this cup is filled with muddy water, and this glass is filled with muddy water, and this cup is filled with very healthy tea. So that means, what is the content of this cup is what a glass is different from the cup. One is muddy water, polluted water, other one is healthy drink. This is what, in this example, it is what our minds. This cup is a physical body. This muddy water stands for what?
Mind.
The mind. And here it is clear, healthy mind. So that means the content, not only the cup gives an appearance, what is inside the cup is also different. In one it is muddy, in the other one it is what? Healthy. Now look at the relationship of space with muddy water.
It's there. It's there.
Is the space polluted by muddy water?
No.
No. Is the space purified by the hell drink? No. Space is always free of what? Muddiness or healthiness. This is reality. It's all reality based. Space is always free.
It's a quality of
Neither
mental
it
makeup.
is confined nor it has any attributes of muddiness or healthiness. This is my true nature. So that means space is attributeless, it does not have any dimensions, it does not take on the qualities of things that it pervades. So therefore, your Atma is like that. You see that we make the conclusion, all our conclusions about I are all with reference to what? Cup and the water. In doing that, we miss what? The space. All our conclusion about my nature is always with reference to the body and the conditions of my mind. In doing so, I'm operating from ignorance. What is the ignorance of my true nature, which is space, which is always free. So that means you have to get the realities right. You need to recognize that the cup is giving an appearance of smallness. You have to recognize that one water is better than the other. True, nobody is denying that. And if you can work to make that water better, please go ahead and do it. But ultimately, what it is what space is already. So that means this operates from that, operates from total what? Knowledge at all levels. And that person, so that means now, imagine if this cup space has figured it out and not living with an illusion that I am as good as the cup and as good as the nature of the water and I am one limitless space, what will happen to this person? Everybody else is caught in this paradigm, but that person frees oneself.
You lift yourself by yourself.
That's true. And the second thing, you no longer need to come and experience the life as what? One little entity. You've solved the whole puzzle. The puzzle of life is solved. Until then, the puzzle is not solved. So that means you are operating from relative knowledge but not total.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So then you are given one more chance. Then you are given one more chance. Then you are given one more chance. In one lifetime, you can what? You have been given the potential to what? Totally remove the ignorance. Then the job is over. Job is over. So this is what we call moksha. Moksha means you understand that I am free. I was always free.
But I got caught up on
But I got caught up because of my own
doings.
At so many different levels. So that means the highest removal of ignorance is what? You are going out from what? Life of becoming. Connected to one little body and mind and expressing yourself through what? That given body.
This is the final thing.
This is the final thing. So this is what it says. Because that means that you can say, yeah, so okay, I can undo this avidya, but what is the result it will give me? This is the result. One will keep you confined to that one given form, even though that form is going to better places. It is like moving from this miserable paper cup to a better, nice china cup. That's what we do.
So in final version you drop everything and pure awareness basically.
When you have solved the problem of ignorance all the way, then what? You don't need to come back to live in this world connected to one form. The minute you get connected to one form, what happens? The form is limited. Body is limited. Body will have aches. You can't totally free yourself from aches. Body will age. So when somebody who was so active just 2 years ago has, if the body survives a certain time, it will decline. You can't do anything about it. And when it declines, what will happen? Your body and mind are connected. You will have some suffering. You can't say, oh yeah, whatever happens to body, I'm always going to be extremely happy. It's not possible. When all your back is aching, you can't say, oh, I'm so happy. I have to tell you one. So, sometimes these corporates, they make slogans. So once I was called at one company to give corporate training. So I went there and then there were like lots and lots of employees. So that the whole hall was full of some 100 people. And they wanted to show to me how evolved that company, company is. Yeah. So the owner of the company got up and he made everyone get up. And then they have some slogans that they repeat every day. So he said, okay, now chant. Not chant, but say. Say the slogans. So they start, I am the most happy person in this world. I can do anything that what the universe, and I can do, I have infinite possibilities. I can accomplish anything that I want to accomplish. And
This is the employee speaks.
so all 80 employees of the 100, they all are saying the same thing. So every day what this person makes them think, because it's a finance company. So what he thinks is he wants to make them what they, he wants to first think that he's evolving them spiritually. And secondly, he thinks that that is good for his business. Because imagine every employee thinks that I can do everything and all that.
No, because in the evening when he brings the numbers and he's not hitting the numbers, he said you can achieve anything.
Exactly. Absolutely. So, yeah. Then, you know,
How do you
I
manage
told
that?
him, no, that once then I gave the talk and then everybody just loved it. And they loved my talk because I said I'm not going to tell you any of these. I'm going to talk about something totally different. So they all relaxed.
There's a relief from
There's a relief, exactly. Now, what happened is, I told him at the end of the talk, I said, you know what, you're making them say all these things. Imagine one day their father is in the hospital and they are really worried about it and they are repeating what, I'm the happiest person in this world. It's all fake. It creates such an emotional confusion, I tell you. When I'm worried, I'm telling myself what? I'm the happiest person in the world.
It's a mechanical.
These kind of, you know, you think you're doing good. You think you're evolving the people. You're doing them what out of your good intentions. If you're not aligned to realities, you're making so much damage, I tell you. Creating very deep level of confusion in the name of spirituality. I said, please stop it. I told him, I said, don't do this.
Did he stop?
They stopped. See, sometimes as a teacher, you have to say what you have to say.
Correct. So what you have to
You're
say?
not here to please people. You're here to what? Make them think something more than what they're already thinking.
Take it to the next level.
Taking it to the next level. Yeah? So therefore, this is something that is what dealing with Avidya and results. So we've seen both of them and we'll see the next.
5 o'clock?
Yeah. 4:45, please come. We'll do the photo.
Yeah.
Om Purnamad